Welcome back, everyone. So, today we're going to be discussing the effect of mental health on professional sports. And near the end of today's episode, I'm going to be illustrating this with an example that's kind of pertinent to this subject, and it's an interesting one. So, professional athletes in general, they deal with mental health problems, issues, situations, sometimes in similar ways to us ordinary folks, but also in their own different ways as well. So it's not everything's 100% the same as the general public. There are some differences as well. And we're going to be elaborating on what those actually are. So among them, you could think of like pressure. There's always this constant pressure to show up, to win, to not let their fans down, or if they're in team sports, not let their team and coaches down, right? There's visibility. The camera is always on them. They're always in the spotlight. There's no escaping that. And, they live a different structure than many of us. So with us, we're kind of affected by work, education, other things in life, family maybe. With them, their work, it involves sports, right? And when you want to be a professional athlete, if you want to find success in that, you have to abide by this particular structure. And that could involve your diet, your workout sessions, and training, and other kinds of preparations in order to, reach your top performance, your top level, and hopefully win something. All right, so let's talk about a couple of these factors, these mental health factors that really affect athletes, sports stars. So the first one, first and foremost, the one that sticks out a lot is this constant performance pressure. So what do we mean by that? So at the highest level, performance isn't just personal. This isn't just about you. Your performance is connected or tied to contracts, lucrative ones, especially if you're a star, sponsorships, and also your public reputation. Are you a good role model, or are you a terrible, source of influence? And so this constant performance pressure really pushes athletes to, try to show up, try to achieve those results. They need to deliver, basically. And what happens if they don't? Well, they're going to experience a ton of stress, anxiety, burnout, and fear of failure. And they might, deem themselves to be a failure eventually if this keeps continuing. And we remember that example with, I think it was, what's her name? I know her face, Simone Biles. There we go. So she was a professional gymnast, and she dominated at the Olympics and World Championships. I think there was one particular year where she really experienced mental health related issues, and I think it was in the 2020 Olympics. I think that was in Tokyo. I'm not certain about that, but yeah. So you could see how the pressure can build up, especially the more successful you are. Interestingly, so it's not just about losing. The more consistent you are with your success, the more likely you're able to experience the pressure as well. Now, another factor that affects an athlete's mental health or mental status is their identity connected to performance, which is closely related to the previous point I just mentioned. So many athletes, they just center their identity based on achievements. So they build it on it. So if they do get injured or benched, like in a team sport, or they're forced to retire, they feel like they lost their purpose in life. Life has no more meaning for them. And I know, like, one such athlete that was kind of significantly affected by this was the professional swimmer Michael Phelps. He was well known for, I think, the butterfly and to some extent freestyle as well. And he openly spoke about depression and mental health related issues near the end of his career. And I remember at one point there was like a viral clip of him with, I think, some close friends and acquaintances like smoking weed or something like that. And, the public kind of blasted him for it. And I think it was more like the media, but obviously there was a little bit of backlash there. Anyway, a third factor that really affects sports stars is public scrutiny. So, and this is just kind of tied into media exposure as well. So they're always under this kind of constant observation by reporters, fans, everyone, spectators at home, right? So the fans, the commentators, and even people commenting on social media like Twitter, which is now called X, you make a terrible mistake, you make a blunder or something, all of a sudden it's amplified. Like everyone and everything and their pet dog are all zooming in on that one mistake. And it's brutal. The criticism, the backlash can be relentless. And some people are, using quite a bit of profanity toward you, or, they're using all kind of bad language directed at you. And if you're on social media or if you're reading the paper, you're going to encounter these things. I'm sure there are there are many professional athletes that try to avoid places where they're exposed to this criticism, but eventually the word does return to their ear. And I remember there was a female professional tennis player. I think her name was Naomi Osaka. She won, I think, 3 or 4 majors, if I'm not mistaken. And her mental pressure built up to the point where she withdrew from the press. So they have these obligatory press conferences after every single tennis match. And if you don't attend, I think you get fined or something. You might lose points in your rankings. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, the thing that drove her, on the edge or off the edge was the media, the reporters, the journalists, they wouldn't stop asking about her weaknesses and her performance, her string of losses. Why are you losing? What's wrong with your forehand or your footwork? Why are you not moving? And she became really self-conscious about this, and she just walked off one of the conferences, that week. And I think there was like a major championship that in the same month or something. And she withdrew from that, just all of a sudden. I think she took time off, maybe a year off of tennis because of this situation. She didn't like being under the media's pressure. Another factor that can really affect mental health in professional athletes has to do with injury or physical stress. So this is one that doesn't get talked about enough. It doesn't receive as much attention as other factors. But yeah, there's this false misconception that physical injuries just only affect your body. That's all. They're just time wasters, and you just have to push through it, get through it, and when you come back, everything's back to normal. Not always quite true. So when you're injured, when you're not participating in your sport as a professional athlete, this affects your emotions, your mood, a little bit of your identity, especially if you're a perfectionist or you've been successful in your sport. And I think a great deal of this mental pressure comes from future security, because there's no guarantee that when you do decide to return after going through, this kind of physical rehab process, you're not going to always be the same player. You might, but there's no 100% guarantee of that. And, that is something they introspect on. It's something they realize sometimes. And yeah, the recovery periods can be, sometimes a couple months long, half a year. It really depends on the kind of injury and, what their medical team has to say about it. Another one is like this kind of stereotype of toughness culture. And if you, as a professional athlete, don't accept that you're a strong person, you have a strong mindset, you're a perfectionist, then there's this kind of stigma towards you that you're weak, you're mentally weak, you're pathetic, you're insecure. And when athletes think about this issue, it can sometimes make them feel rather mentally vulnerable at times. And even though this is changing in the recent decade, it's still something that's subconsciously affecting many athletes. They do internalize this because of their upbringing, especially if, I don't know, let's say their coach is their parent or something. Maybe this is something that they've internalized over time. Hopefully not, but it is an issue. And the final factor, I think that's really significant when it comes to an athlete's mental health and mental well-being, something that can affect them sometimes, a lot of times actually, is just that structure that they have to prepare for the highest level, right? So this kind of daily, weekly, monthly, annually routine that they have to go through every single second, every single minute, every single hour of the day. And yes, some of them have like, a day off, on the weekend or something. But regardless, like the schedule is somewhat strict. You're not supposed to eat whatever you want, like tacos, burgers, pizza, in the week. You could save that a little bit of that for the off season, even something like that's not really that healthy, like beer or soda or something. But when you're on season, when you gotta perform week in and week out. Your lifestyle is controlled to a great extent. So that means you gotta pay attention to your diet. You have a nutritionist usually. You have to pay attention to the amount of sleep you're getting every day. You don't want to like wake up with cramps or physical issues. And so athletes, professional sports stars, they have limited autonomy in this regard. They have very little say when it comes to this. Of course, they do have some say about some things they do want to be incorporated in their structure, but generally speaking, I mean, what they're going through is something that they don't necessarily enjoy. It's just something, it's an obligation. It's just something that they have to do in order to become successful because, you need a strong body and you're not going to be able to have one without this rigid kind of structure. Now, I want to highlight an example of an athlete that's actually experiencing mental pressure right now. I could have picked anyone, but I felt this specific example, this particular situation was relevant in today's discussion because I'm going to be actually watching this match. I think it's an hour later, if I'm not mistaken, in my time. And this is a professional tennis match. Yes, I'm a major tennis fan, tennis nerd. Now, it's between the number one player, Yannick Sinner of Italy, and he's going to be playing Sasha Zverev of Germany. And he's the third highest ranked player on the ATP Tour. Now, what the heck does this have to do with mental pressure if this is like number one versus number three? Good question. So, the example today actually doesn't have anything to do with Yannick Sinner. He's fine. It has nothing to do with him, actually. It has more to do with Sasha Zverev, and I'll explain why. So, Sasha came under heavy scrutiny, heavy criticism, basically. And that's because up to now, I think he's 28, 29 years old, something like that. He hasn't won a major. And a major is just one of four really important championships in men's tennis and females tennis as well. Male and female tennis. All right. Men's and women's, sorry. So a lot of like pundits, experts, and fans alike, they do think he's the greatest male tennis player of all time based on current achievements. He's won a lot of smaller titles and whatnot, but he's never won a major, also known as a Grand Slam. And so he receives a bit of scrutiny, criticism, you know, for this. But today he's not going to be playing in a major. He's actually going to be playing in a Masters, which is kind of like the second tier of important championships in tennis for both men and women. Doesn't really matter. And they're worth 1,000 points. But the particular reason, even though he's won Masters before, like I think 3 or 4 of them, if I recall right, the reason he faces pressure here is that he used to be 4-1 in the head-to-heads against Yannick Sinner. So early in their career, I think around 2022, 2023, he was doing well against him. So Yannick won the first match they've ever played against each other, and then Zverev went on to win 4 consecutive matches against him. And ever since then, after their first 5 matches, Sinner turned it around in 2024. And he's gone to beat him 8 consecutive times since then. It's a lot. It's a lot, you know. And the thing that really makes the situation mentally more stressful than before is that this year, 2026, the year's not even over yet, right? Zverev has lost to Sinner 3 consecutive times. And all 3 consecutive losses came at master level tournaments, these 1,000-point tournaments. And what makes it even worse than that is these master level tournaments that he lost in happened back to back to back. There were consecutive master tournaments in the schedule. So they still haven't played the rest of them yet. There's about like 9 of them or something. So, but he's lost 3 of them to the same guy. And today, as a matter of fact, he's going to be playing Yannick Sinner one more time. And this time it's at the Madrid Open final in Spain. So he's already feeling the mental pressure right now. And, you know, I could see if he were to lose this one, I'm not surprised that he would break down in tears in the trophy ceremony presentation. It's possible. It's possible. It happened, you know, yesterday with a female tennis player from Russia. She's also experiencing mental pressure. Her name's Mira Andreeva. She's a fantastic young talent, but unfortunately, her results compared to last year are not as great. And, you know, a lot of people expect her to be a future number 1 and contend for majors, you know, down the road, but it hasn't happened yet. So, you know, she broke down in tears, and the situation was really stressful for her too, because she's ethnically Russian and she represents Russia, and her opponent was from Ukraine and represented Ukraine respectively. So that kind of added a little bit more tension to her mental health. But anyway, I digress. So about Zverev, some people think he might have a little bit of neurodivergency. He denies having any mental health issues, and he hasn't mentioned anything about being neurodivergent either. But I did notice that he does exhibit a little bit of OCD symptoms. And I noticed like during matches, he's really sensitive to lights, camera flashes. If he were to lose a match, he would blame things on external factors like these. Like I remember there was just a tiny bit of blood on the court. He was quick to point it out. There were birds making noises in a different match, and you know he complained about that. Fans taunting him, whatnot. So he's very vigilant about everything that's going on during a tennis match. He's very sensitive to every single detail. But that's not the point today. We're not here to talk about like whether or not he's neurodivergent or neurodiverse. The point today was to just highlight his mental health, challenges and obstacles. And today is going to be a big day for him. So I'm curious to see whether or not he can, beat Sinner. I doubt it based on their recent head-to-heads and the fact that in the last 3 Masters, He's lost in straight sets. He couldn't even win one set against Sinner, and Sinner in the past 2 weeks has improved his game to some extent. He's getting better with drop shots and other areas of his game. Zverev hasn't made too many significant improvements since then. He does have an excellent first serve and a nice two-handed backhand. Those are some of his strengths. But he does have some issues coming to the net or getting passive during rallies and, whatnot. Anyway, let's see how things go. But that was the example I wanted to mention of a real professional athlete who's experiencing a ton of mental health pressure right now. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we're going to talk about more related issues this week. Take care.